Hi, everyone. This is Buck Talk, a podcast created by members of the Entomology Department at Michigan State University. And we're coming to you from East Lansing. My name is Sophia. Today, I'm here with a podcast that's for graduate students or people interested in graduate school. Today, I'm interviewing people that have recently joined our graduate program in the department here. We're going to be chatting about who they are, what brought them here to the department, why they chose MSU Entomology Department, what brought them to entomology more broadly. And then, of course, we want to hear about the future, what their plans are more immediately in their degree program, as well as what their plans are going forward in their careers. So it's going to be a free-flowing conversation, but first of all, I wanted to give everybody here an opportunity to introduce themselves. So let's go around and please say your name and where you're from, and maybe how long ago you moved to East Lansing or started the graduate program, what kind of graduate program, master's or PhD you're in, and maybe just a few words about what it is that you're doing for research. So I'm going to start off with, let's see, Cynthia.
Hi, my name's Cindy or Cynthia, either works. I am a first-year master's student in Dr. Landis's lab. I'm originally from the northern Michigan area, but I'm currently living on the east side. We are focusing on agroecology. So we're looking into ways to make agriculture more sustainable in the long term and the different ways we can do that. So my lab specifically is landscape focused, and we're looking into beetles and natural prairie strips that can be placed within agricultural areas and how that particular area impacts the native beetle community, as well as how the beetles may be beneficial or predators or weed seed eaters for the surrounding crops. So I'm very excited to get started in this program.
And you just moved to East Lansing or the area here?
I actually live a little ways out. I commute in every single day, but I live on the east side of the state, closer to Detroit.
Oh, cool. Wow. All right, let's go over to Julie.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Julie. I've been here since May. I joined Dr. Mariana Such's lab. We're studying landscape effects on the establishment success of the parasitoid, a samurai wasp that controls brown marmorated stink bug populations. Like I've said, I've been here since May, so I've been all in on the research already. I had a successful field season. But I'm originally from Connecticut. Most recently, though, I lived in New York. So sort of always moving around, but happy to be here now.
At least the time zone is the same.
Yes, yeah, I'm very thankful for that.
All right, thank you. Moving on to Charlotte.
Hi, so my name is Charlotte Shuttler. Oh.
And you have a dog. That's awesome. We love pets here.
Four dogs. I have 4 dogs, and they always pick the worst time.
Oh yeah.
They're hello. So I started off as a technician with the fruit tree entomology lab, actually, and then moved on to the organic pest management lab. I was a colony manager and a technician. And then this year, I'm starting my first year of master's degree with the Organic Pest Management Lab. So I study spotted winged Drosophila, and we're trying to come up with some eco-friendly management techniques for spotted winged Drosophila involving organic compost, pH adjustment with fertilizers, and also some biocontrols with black soldier flies, and in Michigan, the native one is the yellow soldier fly. So I have a little bit of a different trip. I'm from Michigan. I'm from DeWitt, which is 20 minutes north of campus. So
that's convenient.
I've kind of, yeah, and I live in Lansing right now, so it's about a 5-minute drive. So I've been really in the campus entomology circle for a little while.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks. And then Ronnie?
Hello. My name is actually Sharon Miller, but I go by Ronnie mostly. I am from Reno, Nevada, and I moved here in February. So I kind of spent the summer doing research under Rufus Isaacs. And my PhD is going to be studying like native bee ecology across different landscapes, including agriculture and urban areas. Right now, I'm doing an experiment with bumblebees, and we're using real exposure in blueberry fields to see how that impacts bumblebee mortality and behavior.
Awesome. And you moved to East Lansing pretty recently, right?
Yes.
Just a few months ago or weeks ago, or how? long?
February, so we're looking at 7 months now.
Oh, okay. So you've been in, cool. All right. And then Lauren?
Hi, my name's Lauren Goldstein. I'm a first year master's student in Dr. Isaac's lab. I've been here since May. So like Julie, I've had a whole field season. I was working on the USDA Specialty Crop Research Initiative project to improve blueberry pollination using managed honeybee colonies and also taking wild bee samples. I am currently focusing on assessing different methods of determining colony strength for use in commercial pollination settings. And ultimately, I hope that my graduate research can be used to inform management strategies for commercial beekeepers and growers alike in order to improve pollination. And I'm originally from Florida.
Oh, wow. That's a big move.
Yeah, it was a big move. I'm happy to be here though.
All right. Well, I guess that would be the next thing I would like to talk about is what brought you to East Lansing and Michigan State University. How was that process for you to apply to different graduate schools, if you did do that, and what made Michigan State University at the end of the day stand out that brought you here? So I guess, Charlotte, we've heard about your way to the department. It was pretty obvious for you because of the vicinity, right? That was one way. So did you end up applying to other graduate schools?
I had previously applied to one other graduate school, but so the funding that I got for my master's project is based on previous research done by an alum, Holly Hooper, when she was a graduate student at MSU. And I, as a technician, helped her with some of that work. So it was really exciting for me to get funding for that next step and be able to test some of our strategies out on a field scale. So it was really just a continuation of technician work. And I'm very happy to be able to see that go a step further.
So it sounds like your ability to get funding was the deciding factor. I guess the other graduate school didn't offer that.
It didn't. There wasn't funding. It was also a pretty big move. I was looking at a program in Vermont, and I was looking at a program in North Carolina. And I just wasn't ready to just pick up my whole life and move. I've been working full time for a while, so I have my own house, I have dogs, and it just wasn't going to be as feasible for me to move everything.
Sure.
So
yeah.
It just worked out, serendipity.
Yeah. So I kind of want to hear from some of the people here that have made a big move, that like Ronnie, maybe you can talk a little bit about your choices and how you dwindled it down to MSU.
Yeah, actually, I was the opposite. I didn't even apply for my home schools in Nevada. I wanted to get out. I wanted to move since I was 18, but I could never afford out-of-state tuition. So my number one goal was anywhere but Nevada. And the second one was hopefully to get funding or my tuition waived. So those were the things that I was looking for the most. My number one state would have been California because I was born there. I spent the first half of my childhood there, but California is very expensive as well. And applying during the pandemic, there was a lot of labs that didn't have availability or they didn't have funding. So kind of my dwindling down to MSU was that I didn't have many options that would fund me and that were in the right location. But when I had my interview with Rufus, it was an easygoing conversation. I felt like I was talking to someone I had known my whole life. And I knew then and there that I had to move to Michigan. I didn't want to, but I knew that it was going to be a really good lab. So that's why I chose MSU.
Did you put applications into other places regardless, or once you had that conversation, you just all in MSU?
I was also talking to a couple of professors at Penn State, and we were kind of getting the ball rolling, but the deadline was fairly soon for them. And so it would have required a lot of work. And since the interview was so good with Rufus, I figured I might as well just stick with that and put all my eggs in one basket and just kind of hope for the best.
It's interesting. Thanks. Lauren, how was your process?
Yeah, so I had a similar experience to Ronnie. I came from Florida and I loved the university I was at. I was at the University of Florida and I was somewhat involved in the entomology department there. I did my undergraduate research there and I worked for the University of Florida Honeybee Research and Extension Lab as an extension technician for my senior year. So I did really love my previous university and I loved the Honeybee Lab specifically. But after having a conversation with Rufus, I just knew that like I had to go to MSU. It was the choice became very clear to me. Just all the opportunities that were available and the environment of the graduate school just seemed like the perfect fit. I lived in Florida my entire life, so I was very.
Were you looking to move out of state, or you would have preferred to stay in Florida?
Yeah, so I kind of was 50-50 on it. I wouldn't have minded staying in Florida, but I also kind of had an itch to leave. And I had reached out to many professors all across the country, ranging from California to Vermont and Michigan. Just it like Charlotte said, it was very serendipitous that Michigan ended up being the place to be. And I'm really happy it worked out this way because it's so funny. I would think about moving to Michigan and get a little scared because I'm from Florida and I've never experienced the cold. But I'm really happy I'm here and I'm excited to brave the cold. And I think I really made the right decision.
And so, sorry, but just to clarify, when you said you reached out to all these professors, was it an actual application or you just made a first contact?
Yeah, so I made the first contact and out of probably like the 25 to 30 conversations that I had, we got the ball rolling, like Ronnie said, on maybe 4 or 5 of these different labs. But after, again, like Ronnie said too, after my conversation with Rufus, I really didn't feel the need to apply to any other universities because I felt comfortable that this was the right decision and that everything was going to work out. So yeah, I put all my eggs in one basket too, ultimately.
I guess for those of us or those potential graduate students listening to this, check out Rufus's lab. Yeah, I actually got my PhD in Rufus's lab. This was 20 years ago. There are no spring chickens here, but so I guess I know what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right, Julie, I wanted to also hear from you.
Yeah, so I had a sort of unique experience, and I've been out of undergrad for a couple years, but exploring graduate programs had been something that I was routinely doing since early years of undergrad, but I felt the need to take some time off in between and explore my research interests a little bit more. And I wasn't actually looking to enter a graduate program this year until I had met a professor at University of Vermont called Dr. Bruce Parker, and he sort of encouraged me that he thinks that I would be a great fit to enter graduate school right now. And so he really encouraged me to do so. And around May, I looked up, openings, and Michigan State had always been on my list just because of how interdisciplinary the education is and the size of the entomology department. And I thought there were so many great professors studying so many different things that the opportunity for collaboration really excited me. And specifically, I was for a couple years actually looking at Mariana Such's lab, and she had an opening. So I applied and she got back to me within a couple days. I interviewed and we got along really well. And then I moved up here before I was even admitted. So really gambled, but it all worked out. And I've so far really enjoyed my time with Mariana, and I'm co-advised by Dr. Juliana Wilson and have enjoyed working with her as well. And overall, just MSU has lived up to what I've read about for many years.
So it sounds like you didn't apply to other schools either. You
No.
just looked, but you didn't actually go full in with the application.
Yeah, that is correct. I only applied to MSU.
And then Cindy?
Yeah, I'm actually similar to Julie as well. I graduated with my undergrad about 4 years ago, and I decided to kind of take a break and figure out, what exactly I wanted to do before I came back into academia. And so I worked for a year. I took 2 years in the Peace Corps, and then I worked for another year before applying for graduate school. And during my time away, I spent a little bit of time at a USDA mass rearing facility. So I started to get more hands-on with the insects, and I kind of wanted to pursue that a little bit further and get a little bit better education in entomology. And then during my time in the Peace Corps, I mostly focused on sustainable agriculture. And you get to a point where you realize agriculture is the basis of our society and it's a part of everyone's life. So I wanted to figure out a way to kind of combine those two interests, and how can we use insects to make agriculture more sustainable and more applicable across the world. But that comes down to like a landscape level way of thinking. And that was kind of difficult to find in university. So I spent several weeks researching different universities, researching different professors, trying to find kind of that niche that I wanted to fit into. And I came across Dr. Landis at Michigan State, and it felt right. He had very similar ideas to what I've been kind of mulling over for a couple weeks. And I reached out to him, and luckily for me, he got back within a week. And more luckily for me, he actually had an opening in his lab. So it was a little bit weird when I applied. I had reached out in March, and by April, we were starting to send out the application and start talking to others in the lab. So I was kind of accepted very close to the coming fall semester. I was accepted in July. And of course, we just started. So it was very sudden once the ball did get rolling, but I'm actually really happy for it because it was a long time coming, and I'm really happy to be back as a master's student. So
awesome. So some of the common themes that you all mentioned are this looking for the right person. And I want to spend a little bit of time talking about that because you just went through this process, and as a professor or as Department of Entomology, we're interested in how graduate students find our programs. And so can you please tell me how you search? Is it just Googling around? Like, what drives your Google searches? What are the keywords that you're using? Do you talk to people? Is it word of mouth? Is it Twitter accounts? Is it other types of social media? Anything that you can discuss about how you went about your searches would be great. So maybe let's start with Lauren.
Yeah, so I did the very typical like Google keyword search when I was looking for a graduate program. So I would look up things like, I'm very interested in honeybees, like I said, and crop pollination. So I would look up like honeybee crop pollination lab graduate program, like very specific keywords. And I'd come up with a list of a bunch of labs that I had similar interests with. And that's pretty much how I ended up finding Rufus's lab. And it turns out that he was actually looking to bring on a master's student for that project I mentioned that I'm working on. But he had released the announcement for that project the day that I emailed him. So I hadn't even seen his announcement yet. I had just emailed him out of interest. I found his lab website and I liked the goals of the lab. So that worked out really well that it was the same day that he had released an
What a
announcement.
coincidence, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was really cool. And he wrote back to me saying, oh, I just opened up a position today. You should go check it out. So that worked out really well. But before I reach out to any professor, I always stalked their Twitter account to see kind of what was going on in their lab, if they're active. And then I kind of checked out some of their graduate students too, to see what they were working on and see if I could see myself fitting in with the lab. So yeah, for me, it was mostly Google searching and stalking Twitter accounts.
And did you ever look at the website of the lab? Was that a factor?
Yeah, so when I would kind of Google keyword search, I'd always end up on the lab page, and I'd read through some of their recent publications, or I'd look to see if they had ever published anything related to my research interests. And then I would read the bios of all the graduate students to see what they were working on currently. So that all happened through the lab websites. Yeah.
Ronnie, can you explain, please?
Yeah, I kind of had a three-pronged approach, I guess. I started off with suggestions from the postdoctoral researcher I was working under in undergrad. Her name is Sarah K. Richmond, and she was really good about giving me, I think she gave me 5 examples of the interests I had talked to her over the year that I worked with her. So I started there. I would look at their website. Maybe they had a paper that was really what I wanted to do. So I would look up all of the professors or the authors within that. And then I'd go to their website, and that's how I would email some of them. She also told me to look on Twitter because that's how she found her programs. So I had a Twitter account that I made specifically for academia, and I just followed a bunch of professors. And the same thing with Rufus is I emailed him because I found his website. And a few days afterwards, I found out that he posted the position. So I emailed him again and said, hey, I just saw this position. I'd like to apply. So yeah, that's what I use: Twitter, word of mouth, and websites.
Awesome. Then Julie?
I, over the years, had done a lot of different approaches. Lab websites were hugely important for me to get an understanding of who the professor was and what sort of graduate students they were looking for as well, because a lot of, like on the Join the Lab tab, I always enjoyed reading what they were looking for in students, and if what they were looking for, I think I would be a good fit for that lab. And then also, finding papers that I was interested in and seeing who the authors were, like Ronnie, and sort of back tracing that way. I also found a lot of, like Mariana's opening, I found on an EEB listserv. And so that's eventually, how I got this position is through an opening on a listserv. So despite doing, a bunch of research, which did aid in my decision to join Mariana's lab preemptively, but the listserv is eventually what sort of catalyzed me to apply and interview.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I do find a lot of people through the EEB listserv. So I'll link to that in the show notes for people that are not familiar with that and are in our area, that they should definitely sign up for it if they're looking for jobs. I guess, Charlotte, you didn't find this MS position through the internet, but how did you initially find that position that you applied for?
So I did do my fair share of looking for grad programs. And I, previously when I was looking at positions, it's much the same as looking for a grad job. Trying to find people that are doing research that you're interested, using Google, going to lab web pages, which is really helpful sometimes, but not helpful if they haven't updated their web page. Other resources I've used for both are the Texas A&M job page, which also has a section just for part-time work, full-time work, grad positions. And actually I ended up getting my job through a Facebook post when I graduated my undergraduate degree in 2013. I stayed in some of the school groups that I had been a part of on campus at MSU, and lo and behold, a grad student posted in the Facebook page they had a technician opening. and I applied, and that was that.
Awesome. Do any of you follow or used department Twitter accounts? So not lab Twitter accounts, but like MSU Department of Entomology also has a Twitter account. Were you aware of that? Did you use that? I'm just wondering.
Yes, it's definitely something I checked out when I
Mhm.
was reviewing, entire departments if I would be interested in them.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I generally, was sort of gravitated to departments that really highlighted the work that their students were doing, and, were expressing their data in interesting ways as well. Their Twitter wasn't just a bunch of text, it had interactive features and links to papers and graphs and all these sorts of things that made it very fun and exciting to look at.
And then Lauren, you had something?
Yeah, I would parrot exactly what Julie said. When the department Twitter accounts were kind of more active and posting more often, I gravitated more towards those departments, and maybe departments that had Twitter pages that had been kind of stagnant or not used for a while, because it was just hard to see what was going on.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of want to move on from the finding graduate school and applying for graduate school topic to the future. So I want to hear more about, what your hopes are from MSU. Maybe like how many years are you planning to spend in the program? How far ahead you're thinking about that? And what are the hopes that you have for yourself after you are done here with a degree in entomology? There are opportunities out there, but I wonder how carefully you considered what's gonna be your next step after this. What's gonna be the use for this MSU entomology degree that you're pursuing here. So Cindy, maybe let's start with you.
So I definitely want to continue on for my PhD, and that was originally the intention when I talked with Dr. Landis. But in our meetings, we always kind of go over this to figure out what my future goals are and how we can align the program and my classes so that they're best associated with it. And the question really is, do you want to continue in academia as you get through your graduate school, or do you want to kind of move into outreach? Do you want it to be professional or practical? Like, where do you want it to go? And it's a really good thing to start now, and to think about even as you're like getting out of your undergrad or just starting into graduate school, where exactly do I want to go with this? So like I said, I do definitely want to continue on with my PhD. From there, I think I've always wanted to do a little bit more in the field, so potentially into outreach. But if I could find that tie between academia and outreach, I think that would be a really perfect spot, because I love telling the public what I found out and making it applicable to more people. So, that's something I'm still working out. I don't think anybody figures it out perfectly right away. But I think state's a really good place for it. And particularly as an agricultural school, they've got so many different associations that work within state. So like my master's is through the long-term ecological research station down at Kellogg Biological Station. And so there are a ton of different professors and postdocs and students and other outreach programs and NGOs that work through the LTER, through KBS, through the LTAR. So there's so many different directions you can go and so many different people that you can talk to and could mentor you or answer questions to help you get there. So it's a really great school for that.
Sorry, I'm just wondering if you have made plans for this moving on to the PhD. Is this something that you would like to do in your current lab, or is this something that you will look at again, finding another place?
It's something that I want to continue on at state. I think we're kind of working on where that will be and what lab that will be. But if I could, I kind of want to do a bypass. So we're thinking of starting out my master's and getting the project out, getting it all worked, and then hopefully moving on and picking up another committee member. So yeah, it's kind of in the works right now. It's not solidified.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important for people to know that that's a possibility. You can transition from a master's to a PhD without getting a master's, and you can go the other way as well, where you're transitioning from a PhD to a master's if your life circumstances have changed and you want to leave sooner. The program, I I don't think many people know that there are possibilities to do both. So thanks for pointing that out. Maybe let's go to Ronnie next.
Yeah, so this is my first year. I'm year incoming. So my program's probably going to be about 5 years. And I chose PhD because I really do like learning. I probably won't continue with academia afterwards right away. Maybe in the future I may become a professor, but I really hope to apply all of the knowledge that I've learned with my PhD into outreach and conservation. Either it could be in agriculture or urbanized cities. And I want to tie in the human perspective as well, because a lot of the reason why species are declining is because of us. We're impacting them so much. So I also want to interact with the community, both to teach them and community science to get them involved. I think that's definitely something that I want to do. I've also considered doing like policy advocacy. And so that gets a little bit into politics. I haven't committed to that just yet because I don't know how much I want to interact with politicians, but that is something that I would like to do as well. So yeah, my main goal is just to take my knowledge and translate it to the public and also make a difference in some form.
It's interesting that you said that you don't want to stay in academia. Why is that?
I think academia has, well, I've heard that there's not many job opportunities, and I think it's very like cutthroat. And some people say, well, I worked 80 hours a week to get here, and I just don't see myself doing that. At least not anytime soon, because I've already applied myself so hard in my undergrad and now in graduate school. I think I would at least like to take a break and just go out into the field and get maybe a conservation job or work for the USDA or the Xerces Society or something, and kind of make a difference rather than just collecting all this data. I want to be able to apply it.
All right. Thanks for that. Julie, do you want to contribute?
Yeah. So I always sort of foresaw continuing in academia. And that is why I wanted to take a decent break in between before I commit so much time. So I am very passionate about research, and I would love to continue on with academic research in the future with my career and go on to get my PhD. However, I also, like to keep my mind open to other opportunities. And I have worked in the state sector before on conservation projects. And that is another passion of mine, of being able to apply research and being that sort of person who communicates the research from academia to give direct applications to management projects. I think that's a really unique position to be in. And I really enjoyed it in the past. So I would be interested in exploring that as well, and what sort of roles I could take on after I complete my degree in those positions. But, I think like all of us, still figuring that out. And yeah.
Ideally, how far is the end of a PhD for you then?
I'm in my master's right now.
So that would be
I'm a
like
first-year master's.
seven years from now,
Yeah.
ideally, sort of somewhere in that range.
Yes.
Yeah, so you still have time to figure things out. Okay, Lauren?
Yeah, so I went back and forth on this for a while. Had no idea whether or not I'd want to be in school for such a long time. But it's looking right now like I'll probably finish my master's degree in about 2 years. And I think I might call it quits after that. And the reason being is I'm pretty passionate about extension. In my last university, I worked as an extension technician, like I mentioned. And the extension coordinator for the Honeybee Lab, Amy Vu, if anybody's ever heard of her, was like my idol. And I think she has the coolest job in the entire world. She gets to communicate research and research updates to beekeepers directly in so many unique and creative ways, like through podcasts and social media and courses and all different kinds of cool ways. And I really would like to pursue a career that would allow me to focus on pollination or apiculture or small fruits or another closely related field, and develop curriculum for growers and beekeepers to make sure that they're managing their work according to the most updated research.
That's so interesting for me to hear that so many of you are interested in outreach or extension, more so the communication side of things than sitting behind a computer and crunching data or writing papers or those kinds of things, right?
Yeah, definitely.
No
offense, it's great. It's a great thing to have to do, but I don't want to do it.
For somebody else, right?
Yeah.
And it sounds like, Charlotte, I want to hear from you next, but it also sounds like you feel from what you said, it feels like you find that there's more job security in those kinds of positions, or not necessarily security, but easier to find a job in those kinds of positions rather than continuing in the professor path or whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah, and I think a big reason for that is that you can kind of forge your own path in extension and outreach. A lot of those positions don't exactly exist, and you kind of have to make them yourself. And so if you can market yourself the right way and you have the right background and the right experiences, you can kind of make a job for yourself, make a way for yourself. Whereas in academia, I mean, specifically like professoring or teaching, those positions are pretty cut and dry. They exist already and they need to be filled.
Yeah. Charlotte?
I will agree with everyone else that I definitely love outreach and extension and just really the applied use of research to directly help growers. It's always been something that's really important to me, like as someone from Michigan, and you have that tradition of apples and cherries and, knowing the growers. And I kind of was thinking as everybody else is talking, and I really enjoy being a lab technician. I've been a lab technician and a bit of a lab manager before. And I would be really happy working as a lab technician full time. I love being out in the field every day. And like those hard days, there's nothing more satisfying than getting up at 6 a.m. and it's raining and you just do the job and you get back in and it's late and you can know that data is going to be important. I have been away from the academic world. So I did my undergraduate in about 2013 and I worked full time for, 7-8 years. And eventually it brought me back to academia. I don't know if I'm ready for more after this stint with my master's degree. I expect it to kind of wrap up around 2023. And I don't know if I would continue on to my PhD. I am really interested in some of the early learning, not so much like grade school or anything like that, but working with my PI, who's kind of like half my boss and half a teacher. If you don't know what a PI is, that's what a PI is. It's your primary investigator. He teaches a basic biology class to freshmen. I got to teach his class one day. And it's just really interesting now to see how important even just the most basic biology is for incoming students, whether you're an undergraduate, if you're a master's, obviously you don't really take a basic science class, but I just think it's a really great thing. It's another way to just like promote scientific learning for like the next step after, grade school, high school. So maybe I'd want to be a professor someday, but that is a big chunk to chew off. So we'll see, one step at a time.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. I guess now that you're talking about this, I want to turn it to the others as well, is there a particular skill that you're hoping to take away from your time here, such as Charlotte was talking about teaching as a skill that you can pick up? Can you think of anything like that that you like verbalized maybe as part of your mentoring plan or graduate school plan? Julie, you were nodding your head there.
Yeah, so always when I was looking at graduate programs, I was really interested in programs that offered class opportunities in things like R programming and statistical analysis. I think, outside of academia, I've had a lot of wonderful experiences to learn a lot of the applied theory of ecology, but I haven't had too many experiences with statistics and programming languages, which are a huge part of data and research nowadays. So that was the main thing that I was looking forward to for getting out of my master's program.
Have you already started dipping your toe?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah. And it has been a joy, but also a headache, but exciting to learn it. And it's such a quick learning process as well. And also just exciting to sort of see the world in new ways to interpret it, and all these different opportunities to collect data. And I mean, I've been collecting data for so many years, and now I have actual tools to, manipulate it and look at it and see what the trends are. So
isn't
exciting.
that cool? Yeah. Anybody else? Cindy, do you have any skills that you're looking for learning and picking up here?
Yeah, I think Julie nailed it, actually. That's exactly what I was looking for too. I think it's what I wrote into my statement when I applied for graduate school. R programming, statistical modeling, big data, that's something that you specifically learn in graduate school. And yeah, same, I have got years of experience, so learning how to actually handle that and turn that into something useful and something that I can pass on or present is incredibly important. I think there's also something to be said for learning how to manage a project. If you're hiring undergraduates, learning how to be a leader, to be inclusive, everything like that also comes with graduate school. So it's just a different kind of experience, but it's exactly what I was looking to gain.
Awesome.
When I came here.
Mm-hmm. Ronnie?
Yeah, I think mine was definitely extension because I didn't have much experience with that in undergraduate school. I did some research jobs, so I had a little bit of that, but I never actually handled the data. So doing that as well. I had some R courses, but it was more of like, get this grade, not necessarily here's how to critically apply R and do things with your own data. So I think that's been great to kind of get a little bit of that, and I'm excited to learn more about it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then Lauren?
Yeah, so I was actually looking into graduate programs in ag ed and communication, as well as entomology programs. And ultimately, I decided that getting a graduate degree in entomology would be really beneficial to me as a potential future extension educator, because understanding the back end of the research and everything that has to go into research and actually having personal experience in that should probably be pretty important in communicating that research to outsiders. So that was my biggest goal, was being able to understand the process of research while also communicating it effectively.
Awesome. I know we're coming to the end of our time here, and we have other meetings that we all need to get to. So I really want to thank you guys for joining me today. It was awesome chatting with you and getting to know you. Welcome to the department again. Hopefully we can interact in the future in one way or another. So with that, I want to thank everybody for listening today, and we will see you in the next podcast. Bye, everyone.